A mother held an empty bowl beside a dying fire. 3 children stared at the pot like worshippers waiting for a miracle. But the pot contained only boiling leaves and muddy water. Outside, another body collapsed beside the road. Nobody screamed anymore. People were too hungry to scream. Vietnam, 1945, one of the worst famines in Asian history. Millions of people vanished silently. Not from war bullets. Not from bombs. From hunger. Imagine waking up every morning already exhausted. Your stomach feels like sharp stones grinding together. Your legs shake while standing. Your thoughts slow down like melting wax. Then, someone whispers terrible news. The rice is gone. At first, families sold furniture. Then clothes. Then cooking pots. Then doors from their own houses. People traded everything for a handful of grain. A tiny bowl of rice suddenly became treasure greater than gold. The streets changed slowly. Then suddenly, villages became ghost towns. Markets became silent. Children stopped laughing. Even dogs disappeared, because hungry people ate everything. Roots, tree bark, wild grass, rotten vegetables, dead animals found near rivers, anything that could silence pain for another hour. And still, people kept dying. But here comes the terrifying question. How could this happen in a land filled with rice fields? Vietnam was famous for agriculture, so why were people collapsing beside mountains of harvested grain? The answer feels almost unreal. This famine was not simply nature. It was created step by step. Like a slow-moving disaster, nobody stopped. During World War II, Vietnam stood trapped between powerful empires. French colonial authorities controlled the country. Then, Japanese forces entered during the war. 2 powers. One exhausted land, and ordinary villagers trapped underneath both boots. The Japanese military demanded enormous amounts of rice. Rice fed soldiers and fueled the empire's war machine. Meanwhile, French colonial systems kept extracting resources brutally. Farmers lost control over their harvests. Entire communities became supply machines for distant rulers. Then, another disaster arrived. Transportation collapsed. American bombings damaged railways and roads. Rice from southern regions could no longer move north efficiently. Warehouses existed, food existed, but starving people could not reach it. Imagine dying beside locked food storage. Imagine smelling rice while your family starves nearby. That nightmare became reality for countless Vietnamese civilians. And nature joined the attack too. Floods destroyed crops. Bad weather ruined harvests. Insects spread through weakened farmland. Everything combined perfectly. Like history itself decided to crush the poor completely. Then came the winter. Cold winds, empty stomachs, dark villages. People began wandering roads endlessly searching for food. Long lines of skeletal figures moved silently between towns. Some carried children. Some carried old parents. Some carried nothing anymore. Eyewitnesses described horrifying scenes. Bodies lay beside roads every morning. Carts collected the dead daily. Some families slept beside relatives who never woke again. Others abandoned loved ones because they lacked strength to continue. And the worst part? Many victims were children. Tiny bodies. Huge eyes. Swollen stomachs from starvation. Faces too weak even to cry. Some sat quietly beside dead parents without understanding anything. Entire villages watched humanity slowly disappear. One witness remembered hearing only coughing and footsteps at night. No conversations. No music. No energy remained for living. People existed only to survive another day. But another horrifying thing happened during the famine. Human morality started collapsing. Starvation changes the human brain. It destroys patience. It destroys kindness. It destroys logic. Neighbors stole from neighbors. People fought over scraps. Families hid tiny amounts of rice from desperate strangers. Trust evaporated. And rumors spread everywhere. Some whispered about hidden grain warehouses. Others whispered rich merchants secretly profited from death. Some believed officials deliberately ignored starving civilians. Anger grew silently beneath exhaustion. Then came scenes almost impossible to imagine. Parents sold family heirlooms for one meal. Some sold land inherited for generations. Others sold themselves into labor for food. And some families faced impossible decisions about which child might survive. History books summarize famine with numbers. But numbers hide the terror. 1 million dead. Maybe 2 million? No exact count exists. Because chaos swallowed records together with lives. Think carefully about that number. 2 million people. Gone. That equals entire cities erased. Entire futures erased. Entire bloodlines erased forever. And many deaths happened quietly inside huts, nobody documented. No cameras. No internet. No reporters posting updates every minute. Only silence. One village elder later described hearing funeral drums constantly. Morning until night. Day after day. Eventually the drums stopped because survivors lacked energy to continue ceremonies. Even burying bodies became difficult. Some corpses remained beside roads temporarily because nobody possessed strength to move them. Others were buried in mass graves quickly before disease spread further. The living feared becoming next. Now imagine being a child, surviving this nightmare. Every memory attached to hunger. Every road filled with skeletal figures. Every adult carrying fear behind their eyes. That trauma never truly disappears. Many survivors later spoke about lifelong fear surrounding food. Even decades later, some still saved leftover rice obsessively. Some panicked seeing wasted meals. Some never forgot the smell of famine villages, because starvation changes people permanently. And here comes another painful truth. The famine helped ignite massive political change. When governments fail to protect people from starvation, anger becomes explosive. Vietnamese civilians lost trust in colonial systems completely. The suffering created rage, and rage became fuel for revolution. In 1945, while millions struggled to survive, political movements gained strength rapidly. Many people no longer feared dying. Hunger had already destroyed everything. The famine became more than tragedy. It became a turning point in Vietnamese history. People asked dangerous questions. Why were outsiders controlling Vietnamese food? Why did farmers starve beside rice fields? Why did authorities continue exports while civilians collapsed? Why did human life matter so little? These questions burned deeply across the country. Then something strange happened psychologically. When suffering reaches unimaginable levels, survivors sometimes become emotionally numb. Some witnesses described walking past dead bodies without reacting anymore. Not because they were cruel, because the mind protects itself from breaking completely. That detail feels terrifying. Humans can adapt to horror. Even mass death can become normal temporarily. That is how extreme famine rewires reality. And despite everything, tiny moments of humanity still survived. Some villagers secretly shared rice with strangers. Some monks organized food relief. Some families adopted orphan children despite having almost nothing themselves. Even during catastrophe, compassion refused to disappear entirely. That contradiction feels deeply human. In darkness, some people become monsters. Others become heroes. But the famine's scars stretched far beyond 1945. For years afterward, communities struggled rebuilding population, agriculture, and trust. Many children grew up without parents. Many families never recovered economically. The psychological wounds traveled across generations quietly. Even today, older Vietnamese people often speak emotionally about wasting food. Rice carries historical memory. Every grain represents survival. Every meal remembers ancestors who starved. And honestly, modern audiences sometimes underestimate famine because supermarkets exist everywhere. Food feels permanent, guaranteed, normal. But history says otherwise. Civilizations can collapse frighteningly fast. Transportation fails. Politics fail. Weather changes. Supply chains break. And suddenly, ordinary people face impossible choices. The Vietnam famine proves hunger is not merely absence of food. It is failure of systems, failure of leadership, failure of humanity itself. And here's the cruel paradox. Many famine victims worked hardest producing food. Farmers, laborers, rural families. The very people growing rice became those starving first. That irony still feels haunting today. Imagine planting crops all year, watching green rice fields sway beautifully under sunlight, then dying hungry anyway because someone else controls distribution. That sounds fictional, but it happened. Some historians still debate exact responsibility percentages between Japanese occupation, French colonial management, wartime destruction, and environmental disasters. But survivors understood something simpler. People needed food. Systems failed. Millions died. No complicated academic argument changes that reality. And perhaps the most disturbing part of this story is how quickly society adjusted to horror. At first, one dead body shocked everyone. Later, 10 bodies became ordinary. Eventually, people stopped counting. That psychological collapse might be the scariest detail of all, because it reveals something uncomfortable about humanity. Humans can normalize almost anything when survival dominates daily life. The Vietnam famine of 1945 was not ancient history buried safely in textbooks. It happened less than 1 century ago. Real people experienced it. Real children watched parents disappear. Real villages vanished. History is not dead. It breathes quietly beneath modern life. So next time you see wasted food, remember those empty bowls beside fading fires. Remember mothers pretending water soup was dinner? Remember silent roads lined with skeletal travelers searching desperately for one final meal. And remember this terrifying lesson. A society does not collapse all at once. First comes shortage, then fear, then silence. Then people stop believing tomorrow will improve. That is how famine spreads. Not only through empty stomachs, through broken hope. The Vietnam famine remains one of history's darkest warnings. A reminder that political greed, war, failed systems, and human indifference can kill faster than weapons. Millions disappeared, almost silently. But silence should never erase memory. If this story shocked you, share your thoughts below. What part disturbed you most? And if you want more dark historical stories explained visually, subscribe to Why and How.